Hi, so welcome everybody to today's Lightspeed Speaker Series. I'm Chelsea, VP of HR at Lightspeed, and I'm here today with Carol Wood, who's the Director of People Operations at Homebase, which provides free and paid tools that help small businesses spend less time on labor management. So today, Carol and I are going to share some thoughts on how to invest in your employees by focusing on employee engagement and happiness. Okay, so employee engagement is a pretty hot topic. And as retail tends to be a bit of a higher turnover business, by nature we can sometimes assume that we don't have much ability to influence that, but actually we believe that we do. And investing in employee engagement and happiness can help reduce turnover and also increase the quality of service for your customers. So today, we're going to talk about 3 general areas you can focus on to help improve employee engagement, along with some practical tips that you can implement in your store. Okay, so the first area we're going to talk about is onboarding and training, or building the initial connection. So the initial training that you provide your employees can really set the tone for your relationship with them. Sometimes this feels like a lower priority item, but if you provide more of an in-depth training for your employees on the tools, systems, and processes they're going to need to do their job successfully, it can really have a big impact down the line. So I wanted to share a story with everyone. When I was 16, I got my very first job, and it was at a national grocery store chain. And the training that I got in that job was actually pretty intensive, about 2 weeks of training. And there were a few outcomes that came from that training. One was that I felt a lot more confident than in other jobs later where the training was a bit more kind of figure it out yourself. And another was that I started building a relationship of trust with my manager right away. And that trust came into play later on when I made my first big mistake. So I think what I did was, I think I scanned a case of Coke, or I entered someone's case of Coke 24 times instead of once. But for me, it felt like a really huge error at the time, and I panicked. But because I had a relationship with my manager where I already felt some trust from the training that I'd done, I was able to call her over, and she very calmly intervened, had me step aside, fix the issue with the customer, kept them happy, and didn't give me feedback on the floor, didn't make me feel bad for my mistake. And so that experience was a really interesting one because rather than feeling bad about the error that I'd made, it was actually really motivating. I was so impressed with how professional she was and how calmly she handled the situation that it just made me want to work harder and be more like her. So the reality is that your employees are going to make mistakes because everybody does. So use mistakes as a learning opportunity because we believe that people will work really hard for you if they feel supported and invested in on a more personal level. So Carol's going to share some tips now on how you can improve your onboarding and training processes.
Thanks, Chelsea. And that's interesting. My first job, I screwed up at a restaurant. I left all the drinks off the tab for a table, and I had to pay for it with my tips. Oh, no. It was bad. But when you're onboarding your new employees, it's a crucial, important step for making your employees, like Chelsea mentioned, feel connected, which will help them stay longer in your job, and also to provide much better customer service. You want the experience when customers are walking in your door of those happy employees that are motivated to talk to your customers. And the first opportunity you get to impact that is the new hire process. So hopefully you are all training your new hires. But my guess is about half and half have a formal plan, and the other half are probably kind of winging it as you get time on their first day. So really encourage you, it takes 10 minutes to just brainstorm through a list of what you want to train on. It doesn't need to be perfect, but if you get 80% of your list down, which takes about 10 minutes, you will be so much further ahead. Then if you take that list and turn it into a roadmap, think about what do you need that employee to accomplish by the end of the first day, or what might really take them a week to get the hang of, and what might maybe even take them a month. Do you expect them to be an expert on point of sale by the end of the first day or by the end of the first week? That will help your employee feel a lot more confident in their role when they know that they're not expected to be an expert by the end of the first day in some of the more complicated tasks. Now, there are 3 other crucial components to hiring in onboarding that you may not be doing. And they're simple, but you've got to remember to do them. So the second one is to remember, even with your hourly employees, to talk to them about what your vision is of success for that employee. Now, this may sound academic, but it is as simple as just thinking about what will make this employee succeed or fail in the position. And for a lot of retailers, it comes down to customer service. So don't forget to let that employee know that you really expect them and see them succeeding if they deliver exceptional customer service. Third step is you need to have a space for two-way feedback. So you've got that roadmap, the end of the first day, what you want them to learn, end of the first week. So have a moment at the end of that day to tell them that. Here's where you are doing well, and here's where you're not. That's because that's really where the communication becomes more clear in the employee's mind. When they then have had a day to try it out, and you're letting them know with concrete examples, here's what you did well, and here's where you need to keep working. It's really helpful for the employee. Don't shy away from that. And also make sure that you have a space for the employee to tell you how they feel. If they can say, I don't understand how I'm supposed to figure out all these different products. How am I supposed to wait on the customer and bring them up while managing this other customer in the store? Open up the floor to hear what they're not understanding. And the last crucial step of an effective onboarding program is just remember to get to know your employee. For some managers, this is natural for you. But for some managers, it may not be. You may not know how to build a connection on day one with a new hire that you don't really know. So here are a few questions to ask your new hires on the first day. So talk to them about any successes over the last couple of months that they may have had, or someone in their family may have had. Find out what their challenges are when they leave work so you can manage them better. Are they having to take care of family members? Are they working towards a degree? Do they have certain career aspirations? Are they in a band when they're not at work? Find out their personal interests, because you're going to kick off your relationship getting to know them, but it will also come in very handy as you're managing them down the road. You need to know what's their favorite snack, what's their favorite treat, where do they like to eat, where do they like coffee, where's their favorite coffee shop, what's their favorite band. This will help you in the next section, last section we talk about, but get to know it right off the bat. And your employees are going to end their first week on the job feeling like it's an awesome company to work for. All right, Chelsea, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Carol. So the next area we're going to talk about is encouraging an owner mindset and empowering your employees by sharing the bigger picture. So connection to higher level goals and finding meaning in your work is a really powerful driver of performance. And all of you have started your businesses for a reason. You either wanted to solve a problem or you had a passion. So share your company's vision with your employees and share the strategic goals of the business. Show them daily how the work they're doing and the tasks they're performing contribute to the success of the company. Explain how things work. I think one thing that's really important is to explain the why behind a task. So when you're giving them a new task or responsibility, don't just explain how to do it, explain how it fits into the overall picture, how it impacts that day or that week. A couple of things happen when you start to connect someone to the overall vision of your business. One is when an employee starts to understand how a business operates, they start to feel more of an owner mindset and they become engaged at a deeper level with the business. Another is if they understand how the business is functioning at a deeper level, how it operates, then when you're not around and they need to make decisions, they can make better decisions for you in your absence. So another story I wanted to share was about a summer in university when I was hired as part of a team to open a new location of a retail store. So another big national chain, this time in fashion, and the team that had been hired to launch the store was pretty young. I would say everyone was between maybe 17 and 21. And very quickly after we were hired, we started taking on a lot of the tasks around opening the store. So we hired the rest of the staff, we received and set up inventory, we had to learn the POS and train each other on the POS, we needed to build all of the store procedures for opening and closing, even setting up the physical displays. We really did everything. And what was incredible was everyone felt very connected to the overall goal of opening the store. The general manager who was running the project, did a good job of identifying ability and giving people responsibility and autonomy, of course with oversight. And I think feeling trusted to do the work that we were doing, and then also really understanding how all of the things that each of us was doing really fit into the bigger goal of a successful store launch was super powerful, and the team cared really, really deeply about making that store launch a success. So I think if you really empower people and you give them not just tasks, but you give them responsibilities and you help them understand how the business works, you can get a lot more out of them and they become more deeply engaged. So Carol's going to give you some tips on things that you can do day to day to kind of empower your employees and keep them engaged.
Yes, so Nordstrom's is actually such a wonderful example of this concept of how you explain the why things matter to your employees, and it sets off their success. So in the Nordstrom handbook, they have one rule for their employees, which is to use good judgment in all situations. And this has helped Nordstrom's have incredibly high customer service scores on lots of different surveys. And you may notice when you're in a Nordstrom store, the extra level of care a Nordstrom's sales representative may provide. It's not just a sales representative, it goes throughout the organization. And it's so powerful because for both turnover and customer service, because this rule to use good judgment in all situations lets their employees know that the company respects them enough and that they give them that level of responsibility and autonomy in their positions. And that's a powerful motivator for all of us. And if you think about jobs when they've been more satisfying or less satisfying, a lot of times it comes down to how much responsibility and autonomy you had. It's also incredibly powerful from a customer service standpoint. The latest research about positive customer service is showing that the less script that you give and the more general encouragement about why a value matters to you, and then letting your employees interpret that how they need to, is how companies are getting to the next level of customer service. So a few tips to help you empower your employees besides just sort of a general do a good job. Think about how you can empower your employees to build that customer service base. So can you help them predict their schedules so they can let their customers know when they're working next? Can you help your employees get to know their customers and email them as you get new products in the store? You'll find that's something Nordstrom employees do, even though they're not trained to do it. And how can you or encourage them to find special products for different customers? And so that's a few good tips for encouraging an owner mindset in your employees. Now, Chelsea will talk about one of our last areas for improving employee happiness.
Okay, so the final area we're going to talk about is investing in continued growth and development, or nurturing the connection. So feeling that your manager, as Carol's kind of been talking about, is invested in your personal growth and development is really motivating for employees at all levels and in pretty much all jobs. So find ways to give regular feedback to your employees, both positive and constructive. Don't be the manager who only gives constructive feedback when you see something someone could have done better or something you're unhappy with. Your employees will hear and take your constructive feedback more if they know that you are just as likely to give them a shout out when they've done something really well, and they know that they get recognition when they've done a good job. So make sure that you give feedback both positive and constructive. If you're able to give compensation increases, try and tie compensation increases both to performance as well as to increasing responsibility. So at that same grocery store chain that I talked about earlier, at the tender age of 16, I had my first performance review. And I was actually a little surprised because it was an entry-level job with an entry-level salary, but the fact that my manager sat down and really invested time in talking to me about my performance and my own growth and how I could improve myself was pretty powerful, because it made me sit back and think, well, if she's taking my job and my role so seriously, I better take my job and my role seriously too. And so it was a big motivating factor in putting more effort in and growing. And so over the time I spent there, I actually stayed at that job 4 years, which is pretty impressive in a retail-oriented job. And I think that being able to, over time, grow both my compensation and my responsibility was a big factor there. So by the time I left to go to university 4 years after I'd first started, I'd graduated from being a cashier to actually running the lottery counter. And that doesn't sound like a really big difference, but for me personally, I really felt like I had been able to see progress in the time that I'd invested there. And something I noticed later on when I worked other retail roles kind of throughout school and just after school was when my manager didn't feel invested in me, when I didn't feel that personal connection, and I felt kind of like the company only valued me to the extent of the tasks I was performing for them, but not beyond. It resulted in a lower level of engagement, and subsequently I spent less time in those roles and always longer time when I felt connected to the manager. So giving your employees development and getting to know them and encouraging their growth beyond just how it impacts their performance in the role that they're filling for you is something that engenders loyalty. And when you have loyalty, you tend to have longer periods of employment. And so if you have seasonal employment, this might mean being able to hire the same students back year after year, which is going to reduce the time that you need to invest in training. Or if you've got full-time people, it might mean keeping people for several years instead of for 6 months or 7 months. So Carol's going to give you guys some tips now on how you can kind of nurture that ongoing connection with your employees.
Yes, this is my favorite thing to talk about because it is unbelievably low cost. It is so simple and you get to be creative and fun with it. And truly, the rewards do not reflect how easy it is to do. With rewards and recognition, as Chelsea was talking about, be sure that you're recognizing your team for what matters to you. As you're doing that, one of the keys to an effective recognition program is to make that recognition personal. So instead of the same employee of the month, so it can be a good program, but when you're doing the same picture on a wall, the same trinket every month, it loses its effectiveness. And that's because the employees don't feel any connection, that anyone took much time to think about really who they were when they were getting that award. So a few easy tips to make that recognition more powerful. So hopefully in the first few weeks of employment, you've got your list of who that employee is and you will refer back to that. So what's their favorite band? Maybe you buy them a coffee table book from Amazon on Bruce Springsteen if they love Bruce Springsteen, or the Rolling Stones. Maybe you can, on one of the slides, we've got some fun pictures of different personal creative recognition. On their birthday, you can decorate their workspace or their locker or the break room table with pictures of them, or hang things from the ceiling. Just make it fun, make it public. If you've got paid time off, or even if you don't, when your employees take time off, be sure that you give them that time off without the guilt. So take a second to say, hey, have fun on your vacation, or hey, I hope things really go well with your family. And one of my favorite examples of this is before an employee would work really hard, both at work and in her personal life. She finally had some time off coming up, and the company printed a bunch of pictures of her, cut out her face, pasted it all over the break room with a little caption saying, bye y'all. And if they're taking the time off anyway, that just doubles the reward. Some other really fun ideas: write a personal thank you note, or write a thank you note to the employee's family, where you say, this is what your family member's time away from the office means to us. It's such a wonderful personal thing to do. Try to avoid gift cards. And if you're going to do a gift card, make it at that particular employee's favorite coffee shop, favorite place to eat. A few other low-cost ideas: you can buy fill up the break room table or their locker with their favorite snack, and then you put a little flag on top with their name that says, thanks Chelsea, great work. It's just, you just can't help but smile and feel like someone put a lot of thought and effort into it. And it's really not about the money in this type of recognition. Monetary recognition is also important, but through other programs. For recognizing employees for going above and beyond or demonstrating your values, keep it personal, keep it creative. And I think that about wraps up my tips for the
I totally agree with that. I think the other thing that happens sometimes when you start doing those personal rewards is if you have a team of employees, if you're not just one or two people, but you've got 5 or 6 or 10 employees, when you make the rewards personal, they start to value each other's strengths and differences, and they start to make the rewards for each other personal, and they get really involved in it. The Lightspeed HR team will laugh at me for sharing this, but we, one year for our secret gift exchange, everyone got together and we gave one of our team members a cat. And it doesn't get more personal than that. But I think when you really create that environment where everyone's valuing each other personally, you'll find that it's not only the manager that needs to do that, you'll start to see it happening within your own team, and it's really rewarding. So in conclusion, we think that leveraging onboarding and training to really set the tone for your employment relationship and build the original connection, and then building a relationship of trust and ownership through empowering your employees by tying them back to your company's strategic goals and the vision, and then investing in ongoing growth and development as well as the ongoing engagement and connection can really all contribute to reducing your churn. And we know that if you take care of your employees, they're going to take care of your customers. So I think that's all for now, and we'd be happy to answer questions if there are any questions. Okay, so we've got a few questions. Okay, so from Maria. Maria would like to know, how do I make sure that my employee rewards program doesn't negatively affect my store's culture and create jealousy and tension between my employees? So how to create a rewards program that doesn't engender negative competition?
Yes, that's a good question. It's certainly part of a lot of recognition programs. The main tip is that's another benefit of making personal low-cost recognition. Because when it's more fun and there's less money tied to it, employees don't get quite as frustrated when someone else wins that award. Try to keep compensation-based awards, so bonuses, gift cards. You want to try to tie that more to fair and easy to implement performance metrics so that all employees can achieve them, and it's less only one employee can win that particular compensation award. So compensation tends to create that bad feeling. The personal fun awards tend to be a more positive, more positive for the culture.
Okay, great. Do you have another question? Okay, another question from Us. How do you deal with demotivated employees in your store?
Another really good question. So I think I would start with trying to really improve some of these personal recognition. So if you've got a demotivated employee, have you spent time recently just knowing who that employee is? So what are their personal successes and failures? Is there anything you can do to support that employee? So first I would try to connect to the employee. And then once you've done that, then try to recognize an employee when they're doing a good job any way that you can. And another really fun way to boost employee morale, there's an online tool called Bonusly where employees all get a set of points and they can donate points to each other as people are helping each other out. And that can really turn into a positive environment. And a last kind of easy tip for boosting morale. If you haven't done any team events lately, I would encourage you to do a team event, but not the same old, trip to the local Mexican or Italian restaurant. Try to pick a team event based on who your employees are. So are they involved in any nonprofits, and can you do a helping day at that nonprofit? Or do you have a yoga instructor that's an employee? Would she be willing to teach a class at your site before or after hours? Or maybe an employee that's into skateboarding. We actually, at Homebase, have a client that did a team event at a skate park because one of their employees was a skateboarding instructor. I don't know how to skateboard, but I think that would be fun to learn to skateboard from the employee.
Yeah, another one we've done before that's a lot of fun and not too expensive is doing an escape room as a team, because it's a fun event. You can take everybody off-site. It's not just a dinner, which people tend to do a lot of the time, and it builds teamwork as well. So that's another fun way of taking, if you have a whole team that needs a bit of a boost, try and think of group activities you can do together, or sumo soccer, something that gets everybody laughing and working together, I think is really fun. Okay, so we've got a question from Heather who would like to know, how do you recognize employees who are seasonal or only there for a short time, like summer students?
Okay, good question. how do you recognize a short-term employee?
Mm-hmm.
Right, because typically if you're going to recognize a short-term employee or longer-term employee, maybe a little irritated. But if anyone's gone above and beyond, they deserve recognition. So you could maybe have just a short-term employee recognition program if you need to separate it. That might be one idea. But again, it's all, with low-cost personal recognition, then you're not investing that much to get a pretty significant amount of reward.
Yeah, and I think doing things like goodbye celebrations, if someone's only with you for a short time and then leaving, having even a casual, low-cost goodbye celebration together is an opportunity to thank them in front of their peers and maybe have them feel really good about their last day or two so that they're more likely to want to come back and work for you again later.
Oh, right, absolutely. And also just spread the word that it's a good brand to work for.
Yeah. Okay, from Vincent, we have, how do you track employee performance after you've given the performance review, and are there any tools for that?
Good question. So there are lots of web-based tools for tracking employee performance. You can track employee performance through Homebase, where I work. But if you're not a tech-savvy person, which you really don't have to be for these web-based tools, but just a log book. So with the date on it, and be sure that you note the positives and the minuses, because you're going to get to the end of 6 months and you will completely forget what's gone on with your employees. So just keep a logbook. It's as simple as it gets, but there's a lot of neat web-based tools out there to check out as well.
Yeah, and if you're giving a performance review and you're talking about constructive feedback, your employees feeling like you remember all the good things they did 6 months ago really helps them feel connected, and then they're going to feel more willing to take the constructive feedback as well. Okay, so we have a question from Anne-Marie. How do you conduct effective feedback sessions with your employees?
Good question. So there's a formula for it. Always first, the behavior that you observed. So try to never speak in generalities, like you're always late. Say, on these days you were late. And try not to say you're not good at customer service. Say, on these days, from your manager logbook, on these days, this is what happened with the customer. Then so that's the observation, and then why that impacts the company. So it impacts the company because there is no one here to greet the customer. It impacts the company because we're not having as many repeat customers. So the observation, and then how it impacted the company. And then let the employee, I think managers want to give this message and they want to feel like the employee heard them, absorbed it, accepted it, committed to it. That's not realistic. Usually the employee is going to be a bit defensive, but over time they'll understand what you say. So try not to expect complete commitment as soon as you deliver the message.
And then I think another thing that's important is if you've given feedback and you see someone implementing that, make sure that you recognize it. So if you've asked them to change their behavior and they have, when they do that, they should get positive reinforcement that you're seeing that they're making an effort, and that will make them also in future kind of know that it's not that hard to take feedback and implement it, and it can change how you're working.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Great, so I think that's it for today. If you have more questions that you didn't get answered, you can post them and we'll answer in the comments. So thanks again for joining this week's speaker series on investing in your employees. And join us again next week on August 15th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time when Lightspeed CEO Dax Da Silva is going to talk about navigating technology.